I'm Darrel Tank. I'm going to do a critique in our ongoing series for the 5-pencil method. And in doing this, I want to remind you that when I'm making recommendations, it's always in the context of the 5-pencil method. Many of these drawings are very nice on their own, but if you're striving to learn and see how to apply the techniques and principles, then that's what I'm trying to help you with. So today I have a picture that somebody sent in of this young boy, and I think it's a really nice picture. I enjoyed it, and yet there are some things I think I'll be able to do with it that might help you learn a little bit about structure and contour. Now, when I do these critique demonstrations, I want you to remember that I am not telling you what pencil I'm using on purpose. I want you to become familiar with the technique and the way I've told you to only use a certain amount of pressure, to use the appropriate pencil, and try to come to the place where you can start determining that on your own. In these demonstrations, I'm using a pencil, which I'm not going to tell you, because it's the only one that will work on this printing paper. And so I don't want to lead you astray by saying I'm using this pencil and have you try to use it on our art paper. So let me go ahead and get started. And there are several things that I thought that we might be able to do quickly to this picture that will really transform it. And that's going to be the case often. You'll find that you're farther along in accomplishing what you're striving to do than you thought. So let's go ahead and maintain this in a parallel position and take a look at a few things. This right here, if you'll notice in the picture, this is quite a nice contour. This bridge of the nose isn't quite that defined. And so right away I want to keep from making too much out of a little feature or a contour, so let's back that off just a little bit. And let's make sure that it's a contour by taking our value both directions. Remember, when we have a contour, we go soft both ways. We can see in and out of this. It isn't around and out of our sight. So I want to make sure on this side of that darkest part in this picture, it's soft and blends into the contour. And one of my main things was to take away that very defined edge. Okay, now let's go ahead and take a look at a couple different things in here that might be changing the dynamics of the shape and the proportion. If you'll notice here, it seems less space here than there is here. And besides that, this smile line is very short and doesn't come down far enough. Well, it's very easy to look across here and see, well, how far should I make? Well, it looks like it comes down almost to that point. So that's one advantage. We can line it up. It's very much like using a grid, except that we have to imagine the lines. If we start looking at this and visualizing the vertical and horizontal lines, you will automatically start having the opportunity to see how it lines up with something else. And this is something that's going to be a great advantage, especially if you start drawing freehand, or if you just want to make sure that you get things quite a bit more accurate than you might have before. Remember, one advantage is to being able to have it in the same orientation. Another opportunity is for us to visualize a grid. It isn't really there, but we'll just kind of always look at things horizontally and vertically as well as comparing angles. I would like to be able to take advantage of more of this underside of the cheek so that this isn't all just flat. Remember that everything that is the same color or the same value is going to be flat. I want some variation. I want to see that gradation. I want to see a range of value. Anywhere I can possibly justify it, because this is going to give me contour and dimension to my picture. So I'm going to add a little tone, and some of these will probably be able to be taken farther. This isn't going to be terribly refined, and I can't really do it as well on this paper, but at least it gets you going in the right direction so you can start seeing things happen here. This also helps me develop a side to the face, and you'll see that there is a value change from here over to the side. Well, we don't even have that here, and yet if we add that in there, it's going to do a lot for the contour, a lot for the character of this face. Even though it doesn't seem like it's that big of a thing, some of those are things that if we catch them and add them in our picture, we might find that that was a very integral part of who that person is, something that separates them from the average or the norm. So this is the shaded side of the face. This is the side that has a darker value, and I want to be consistent in that as well. I don't want to have this like there was a light source over here, because this is the brightest side of the face. And so I, in the same way, don't want something very dark over here to contradict the fact that this is the dark side. So I'm taking advantage of contouring a little bit. If we keep our lighting consistent, we can change a lot about our pictures. Now again, this is a very nice, simple approach, but it can be taken to another level without a whole lot of trouble. Now, one of the things that I like to do when I'm doing ears, many times the ear is positioned so when we're taking a picture with using a flash, it ends up by getting becoming a little lighter. Well, in this case, it is dark the way I would expect it to be, and that helps us set it back from the face. As soon as I create my edge and I dedicate what side is being shaded by what, then we have an opportunity to set that ear back. So you see the edge of the face is basically shading this, and we've moved that ear back in the proper position. Okay, so now we've kind of got a little bit different feeling over here. I'm going to come back over here in just a little bit, but let's go ahead and continue to structure this face. If you'll notice that the smile, these are little things you need to pay attention to, or can. This looks like it goes right straight up, and yet this one curves down right away. Well, I want to go ahead and change that a little bit. So let's see if we can take that off. And this is going to change the width of the mouth. It's going to maybe change a little bit of the mood and capture his personality maybe just a little bit more. So now that I've got that up there, I'm going to come over here and do, it's kind of like it's part of the smile lines, but it's more like a little indentation, like a little dimple or something. But I want to make sure that I get that. And now this space isn't quite so wide. This was quite a leap from here to here, but even just this helped break it up. That little bit of a recess there. And if it's there, I want to notice it. I want to capture it. I want to utilize it. Okay, so now we know that this side of the face was shaded because our light source is going like this. You always want to try and establish that so that you can make sure, again, that your shadows are consistent. But the nose is also shading that side of the face because it's sticking out towards us. It has dimension to it. Okay. Now I think that I want to take a look at this. This looks like it comes up into kind of a point here. I want it to be more of an arc, a natural curve here, and not just go up quite so steep there. And the way a nose is constructed is it should have something to show us that it's actually coming back this way just a little bit. But if we do this right, we can come up here and show our clean edge. It has to be a clean edge, and then come down softly with that shadow that's being cast. Okay, so now let's come over here to the mouth again, and I want to make sure that I have a good clean separation between the lips and the teeth and the gums. And so I don't want to get too dark, but I want to be able to show that there's a clean edge to my value, and then make sure that the gum is what's being shaded. Let's go ahead and make a clean edge. I hope this doesn't get too dark on here. This is a pretty dark pencil. I'm trying to find ways that we can establish depth and dimension. And we just don't want to waste this opportunity. I'm going to back this off a little bit now that I've cleaned it up. I don't want them to get too dark. And now let's extend this one out. You see, again, we have this tremendous space here. We have almost the same thing going on this side as we did on the other side. And we needed to extend this out a little longer. This is an opportunity for you to utilize this. There's always something on your picture that should give you an idea of how something compares to it, in a measurement. So again, this is our comparative measurement tool, and we're going to go to our source, see what we want to find, and see what is the equivalent of that. And you'll usually be able to find something. Oh, it's these two teeth. So we're going to go to our picture again. Hopefully we have this pretty accurate. And we're going to go from the outside of that tooth to this other part of the tooth. And now we're going to see how far we need to go out here. Oh, look at that. Well, you can see now I have the confidence. I can come out here and add that, what do we call it, a little indentation, kind of a little dimple, a little smile dimple here. I don't know what else to call it. It isn't really part of the opening of the mouth. It's just a little gathering. But now I'm going to extend the opening of the mouth out a little bit more too, towards that. Has a lot to do with the character and the personality of this boy, even though it doesn't seem like it's that much. And it will change proportions. It'll give you an opportunity to have now this accurate part to compare something else to, and it might change how you view the entire portrait. All right, so I think that is something that probably helped. And let's go ahead and look at this smile line over here. Look at how short this is, and look at how nice and curved this is. It goes down past that corner of the mouth, or that little dimple. This one doesn't even make it all the way down there. So these are things, again, that you really want to pay attention to, because it might be a very critical or integral part of capturing the character of this boy. Now I have the opportunity to come over here, because the light source is from here over this way, and this is sticking out. This is dimensional. This is actually casting a shadow over here, just like the nose would cast a shadow over here, just like this cheek would cast a shadow over here. So let's go ahead and take this as an opportunity to start building the underside of the cheek. Give it a little more dimension over here. Remember, we're just talking basically about, capturing the the structure, and along with that is going to come along some of these important character traits. This helps me come down here and notice that this is shaded. Just like on this side of the cheek, it goes from light to dark, and this goes from light to dark. That's because these are round. This is round, this is round, this is round like this. That's why I want to create an underside. So now we have an opportunity to give a little dimension to the cheek. Now if you remember too, things will look the proper value by what they're contrasting with. So when I come over here and the light is really shining on this side and the hair is sticking out a little bit, now we have a little darker place in here because that's where the hair is blocking the light. And now I'm going to look at some other subtle things like the curve of his cheek. It looks like it possibly goes in ever so slightly. This comes out here, it has an apex somewhere in here, and then this kind of goes back in this way. So there's a little bit of an apex to this as well. And it's a little bit darker there. Again, some of the things that may not seem like they'd make that much difference. But it might be really important to not add on a few pounds to somebody. Just a tiny little, capturing a little bit of a curve, a little bit of a contour, can suddenly take quite a bit of weight off of somebody. So that's one of the things that I would approach. Now, I see something else that's pretty prominent to me. I see this is a little different than we might normally expect to see, because often past the chin would be darker. That'd be where there's less light, following the rules of light. But this one, it happens to be darker. Maybe it's just the way the reflective light was brightening up his neck. But there's even though this is a round chin, there is an angle. When I put my pencil up there, which I could put my straight edge to, you'll notice that this isn't perfectly horizontal. It actually has a tilt to it. Even though it's not totally flat, it still isn't totally symmetrical either. And so that is another thing that might be very characteristic of this boy. And it looks like he has a little bit of a cleft. A little different and unique, but I might catch that. I don't want to make too much out of it, but there's still a little bit of a different dimension there. Okay. Now, that is something I would work on as well. And I want a little more dimension in his lip. So when I'm working on this is an opportunity for me to get enough value so that I can actually contour the lip and bring more focus to the highlight, the apex of that lip. Instead of just having this be broad and flat, I have a chance to encroach on that highlight and crowd it into the proper place so that we actually have roundness to that lip. And I don't want this side of the lip to be as dark as this side of the lip. As bright as this side of the lip. I started saying it right in the first place. So I want to look at the curve over here, and I want to get my darker value in here so that I can add a little tone in here as well, so that this is the bright side. This is something else that you'll notice in here. This lip over here is open here, there is a slight indication of an edge to the lip, but you'll see it's quite a bit of a highlight where we have this going all the way up, and we want to go ahead and back that off. So let's go ahead and take that out of there. Let's go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. It looks like this is a little bit defined and dark over here. So now we have the overhang from the lip. It would be shading this as it goes back in towards the corner of the mouth, and so I'm going to go ahead and make the lip a little darker here because it's going back and being shaded by that upper lip. Now as I go this way, the teeth are on a curve like this, and so my teeth are also going to be getting a little darker over here. And over here it would be the same way. I want to make sure that these are a little darker on this side. There's an apex to their positioning too. Okay, now let's go ahead and just approach a couple things. I'm not trying to give all the detail here, but it's still good for us to, come in here and establish some depth and dimension. And I don't want the dark lines that I'm putting down to actually become the hair. I want them to be the spaces between the hair, the shaded parts. So that means that I'm going to take an edge, need an edge to value, need to have a clean edge, and I'm going to shade it that way. That's why I wouldn't have this dark. I want this to be a space. So let's go ahead and tone that down just a little bit so it isn't quite so harsh. And let's make this an edge to value. Let's make sure that the hair is sticking out enough that this now becomes the edge of a shadow instead. And you could go through the picture and accomplish the same thing in a number of places. Instead of having a dark hair in your picture, a dark line, and expect that to be a blonde hair, it isn't going to be, but we can make them spaces. We can make it an opportunity to show the darker places in between the blonde hair and take away that line trying to represent something it can't. You'll never be able to have a dark pencil line represent a blonde hair unless it's silhouetted against something lighter. So let's go ahead and move up to the eyes real quick here. I think that this is something that's really important. This is not round. So let's take a corner off over here. Doesn't take much to guide it back into being round. And remember the rule, if they're looking at us, it's going to be a round iris. And this helps us be able to establish focus. It helps us be able to put the pupil in their appropriate place, where when it's a little off, it's hard to know where to put that, but we want it in the middle. And if you cannot figure out whether this little bit is going to be a round circle because he's looking at us, then you would go ahead and just lightly sketch out here the continuation and make sure that you do indeed have a what is going to represent a round circle if it were extended out there. So I'm going to take this value for this edge, these eyelashes, and take it up there as well, a little bit more of an arc. Now on the other side, let's go ahead and take a look at what we can do over there. These eyes aren't that light, so what I'd like to do is I'd like to put a little more value in here. Don't have to get terribly dark. I definitely want the pupil to be the darkest part. And I'm going to put enough value in here that the highlight starts working in my favor. I want something to contrast it with. This will help bring more attention back to, again, probably one of the most important places on any picture, and that's the eyes. life of this boy is going to be in his eyes. So now I'm going to guide this down just a little bit more. I don't want to get this too big. Over here, we can make so much more out of this by not just having the color of the clothes, but we want to have a clean edge separating the clothes from what is its shading. And the fact that this is being shaded by the clothes, and it's, even though it's a lighter skin and a whole nother value, we can still demonstrate that the shadow is being cast on this by having it soft on this edge instead of having two harsh edges, two clean edges. That makes it so that there's two competing dimensional edges, and we want to quickly designate it. We want a clean edge, and we want to have a soft edge where it comes into the light, or the edge of the shadow. Okay, it's the same thing over here. This can just give it a little more interest and dimension without too much work. I made that too dark. I don't want a dark line on the edge of his neck. Okay, so I think these are probably some things that might help you. I hope that you enjoyed doing your picture, and you'll be able to incorporate some of these suggestions into your work. One of the last things I'd probably do again is to look for consistency on my light source. So I don't want this side of the hair to be as light as that side of the hair. So I would probably come in here and put a more value over here to suggest that this is the shaded side. If I have to quickly transfer it over from dark lines becoming hair, I would just try to make sure that there's maybe a tone between two dark lines, just to suggest that there's a shaded area in there. But I don't want to have both sides the same value when I've taken care to show that the cheek is shading this side of the cheek, the nose is shading this side, the mouth will be a little darker over here. And we could go on, but I think that's probably enough to give you a few tips on what you can do with this picture. Nice job. It's a fun picture, and I'll see you in the next demo.